Well, hello, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes, and I'm happy to be here on a Friday night. And you can tell, and I want to say hello to UFO John Doe, Melon Balls, all of my friends, J Bench. Thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate some of you staying up until all hours of the morning and waking up early. You guys rock. And yes, we spent the whole afternoon trying to figure out what we're going to be. Nobody knows, but that's okay. We're having fun because I feel like I'm maybe 18 again, maybe 5, 6, whatever it is. But we're going to have a good time tonight because all of us have been through such a stressful year that sometimes we need to just enjoy life and have fun and remember some of these wonderful holidays like Halloween, which, as you know, if you follow UFO Classified, is my favorite time of the year. And I remember, and I think hello, Sean, and hello, Lord. So this is my friend Susan. My friend Susan, I will just say, has been... Nope. She's...
No, not tonight.
So,
I am not.
Okay, but she has been with me for a long, long time with me. I don't know what that means really, but she's been my friend for 18 years. And so I first met Susan when she came into my Pilates studio with her sister, and they both became two of the favorite people in my orbit. And actually, Becca and Susan traveled to Ireland with me. So we went over to England to do Pilates. I had to go over there and test out a group of students. And I said to Susan and her sister, I said, let's go over and we're going to stay in every haunted castle all the way down Ireland. And we did that. And we have the best stories to tell. And hello, Scott. Nice to see you. And I love it. And so I also want to say Riff Raff is in the house, which would mean, Jack Brewer, Riff Raff, you got to love it. And then look at this right here. Oh, my Lord.
Avast!
Barry, I had no idea you had those skills. That is so sweet.
Do you know what I am?
What?
I'm a steampunk seaman.
Yes.
Shizzle.
Wow.
Steampunk.
That
or seaman
is so amazingly awesome. It's going to take me probably 5 minutes to collect my thoughts.
You may not know this, but I was abducted while I was at sea one time. And the aliens wanted some insight into the human condition. And I said, go ahead. And they plucked my eye out.
Oh.
They gave me this thing to use. It's no good. I can barely see out of it. It's myopic. I don't like it, but I have to live with it.
Is there does NICAP have a report on that?
Not yet.
Oh my God. Somebody's been slacking.
I was embarrassed.
Well, I can see why, but I think that's really cool that you're coming to terms with your condition now.
Well, you think this is bad. You should see me without it.
Well,
maybe we should.
Maybe tonight's the night. Do you think you could come out of the closet? And
I was never in any closet.
Oh my.
Good my helping.
That's good. That's good.
By the way, Jack, I like your costume. It's excellent.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It's a special evening. You must be here for one of the master ceremonies.
That's right.
I'm doing my live audition for Rocky Horror Picture Show.
And we were going to do...
Let's do it.
Like we were going to do the time warp. And this is the thing, and I'd sent messages to all of you guys and I said, okay, we are going to do the time warp. And I had all of these things planned out. I was so excited. And that didn't happen. But I want to say hi to Mark Rutledge. Thank you so much for being here. And yes, ufology is supposed to be fun. And so anyway, thank you. It's really nice to see you. And Simon, this is my friend Susan.
Hello, Simon.
Yeah, so Simon is in the house and stuff. And so thank you all of you guys for, like I said, just getting on here and supporting the show and just realizing that 9 times out of 10, we're going to do a serious show, but then sometimes we need to let off a little steam. And I will say, Barry, like I am impressed.
Well, one time you said that I look like a sea captain.
You do. Yeah.
So now I'm fulfilling your wish.
Be still my beating heart.
Are you hot?
It's these costumes, I tell you.
Hey, Cloudy. No, but that's good. So, okay. So let's talk about UFO news just to get it out of the way this week. Barry, what's been going on in the UFO world?
I think the big news this week has been NASA and their appointment of panel members to look into UFOs over the next year. And it's funny because I thought the reaction to it was interesting in that some of the skeptics out there thought it was a little short of history. And that's what I had said with a number of people, that I wonder how they're going to research the past of the subject, because some of that might be relevant to what they do now. They may not think there's enough time to do that. There's 75 years of history that you have to go over, and how do you absorb that even within a year? I would think they'd need someone to advise them on the phenomenons previous years and what had gone on, and some possible pitfalls that they may encounter in dealing with it. But nevertheless, it's still an interesting development. I'm anxious to see what they come up with. Maybe I won't be surprised that much. I believe there's also another report coming out Monday, a task force report following on last year's task force results. And I fully expect a much more skeptical view this year than last year, considering who they had, or at least partially advising them on their statistics, meaning Travis Taylor from Skinwalker Ranch. It was interesting prior to knowing that they came up with something like 99.3% unknowns out of all the reports. That was hard to believe. But now that I know they drew people from Skinwalker Ranch, maybe it's not such a surprise.
Absolutely. I think this whole thing is very interesting. And I want to ask you, Barry, because you read the article that Jack Brewer worked so tirelessly on our website, our nonprofit Expanding Frontiers Research. I mean, what are your thoughts when you read the article that we just published?
My thoughts, I thought it was extraordinary that a state government would get involved with this. I rather suspect it might be for attracting business, tourism, perhaps, get people interested in Utah. But as an expenditure of taxpayers' money, it's really dubious. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was an inquiry into it financially as to why that happened, and why so much money was sent out to really rather dicey information.
Right. And I mean, thank you. To me, I think the most important takeaway from all of this is the fact that there are people that are allocating money that honestly don't understand the gravity of the information that is being conveyed to the public. And to me, when you're conveying information like you are going to go to a specific place and be irradiated, or you're going to leave and you're going to die of cancer, all of these things, that's really problematic. And for public funds to be going to a project like that really speaks volumes about what is not taking place, and the lack of transparency and the lack of oversight, to be honest, about all of this. And so, Jack, what have your comments, what have your thoughts been as you've seen things unfold since we published the article?
The overwhelming initial sentiment is, wow, I didn't know that government was paying for that conference. And didn't people in the paranormal community that keep an eye on this and follow it have expressed shock and a lack of awareness that speakers were being paid by the county government to present these unsupported claims. Another thing that has been expressed to me is the interest that people have in how it came about, who made the decisions, and who was involved in that. And the research is ongoing into that, and some of the principles and the circumstances repeatedly did not answer, or I should say, did not respond to repeated efforts to reach them prior to publishing the story. And to me, that says some things too. That it's my understanding some of them have some things to say now, but as Erica and I have discussed, and I think you would agree, Barry, the documents speak for themselves, and we don't have to editorialize the situation. Just continue to ask government employees, county officials, elected officials, to be accountable for what took place and be transparent. And in my opinion, that's what writers and researchers and those elected officials, that's what their purpose is.
Right. And I'm really, I will say that I'm very excited about what the research that you have done, that both of us have done. I think this is really important, and I can't wait for other information to be brought to light, because of course you and I have been digging, and thank you, UFO John Doe, for your nice pledge to the show. Thank you. But you and I have been digging, as has Barry, for a long, long time behind the scenes, to find out specific places where there could be this kind of goings on taking place, where people could be potentially manipulated, where people could be hiding funding, where they could be misusing taxpayer money. And so I think this is a great expose. And of course, yes, we have had as a statement, I've been informed today by a few people from Tom Winterton, and I want to just go on record to state that you did reach out to Tom Winterton to make a comment on all of these goings-ons, and he did not reply, right?
That's correct. I reached out to multiple email addresses and offered opportunities to speak by phone or video or whatever he might prefer to do prior to publishing the article, and I did not receive responses from any of those.
Okay, and I think that's a very important thing to just kind of emphasize, because it would seem that there was that we didn't reach out, and that is simply not the case. There was plenty of time to respond before the article went public.
I'm interested in the channeling on this information. Who spoke to who to get this funding applied, and how high up in the government of Utah did it go?
I think that's a good question. There appear to possibly be some conflicts of interest in people on cable television shows having active parts in planning the Phenomenon conference, and the decision-making process of how the speakers are selected and how their compensations are arrived at is unclear, and when the city manager of Vernal was specifically asked that, he, in my opinion, averted from the question. And we, as you suggest, Barry, we have some potential conflicts of interest here of cable television and county government and people being paid that have financial interests in the narrative being promoted.
And I think that that's a really important thing to state, because the word, that you're getting now, of course, you've got to run defense on this, is that it's good for the economy. But when you look at specific people and where the funding was going, are these people that are related to people that are organizing the event? How did that affect other people that were trying to get involved in a community sense? It is my understanding that there were people in the community that were trying to kind of join all of this, and they were served with cease and desist letters. And so how much of this truly is something that is a community event? I think that remains to be seen, and it would appear that that it's for a handful of people to make money and profit off of a narrative that is not factual. And not only that, it's off of the narrative that can potentially harm people's mental well-being. And I think that's very important.
I would agree with that. Like particularly that it's difficult to understand how it squares with tourism to promote a narrative that people are potentially in grave danger to visit a property that you are then using as the draw for the tourists. So you either believe that potential harm can come to people or you don't. And you either believe this hitchhiker effect that they're selling or you don't. And as pointed out in the article, and as some writers that are sharing the article have pointed out, the circumstances have not been reported to the Center for Disease Control or environmental agencies or people that actually investigate these types of circumstances. So there's just a lot of gray area there. And as we have pointed out, government should represent the interests and promote the interests of the people, not simply attempt to avoid violation of ethics principles and law violations.
Right, absolutely. And I think, like I think of, like, if you filled up a tour bus and said, hey, let's go out to the Nevada test site, and we are going to, this is really, really great. Let's all get there. We know that you're going to have radiation poisoning and things like that. It doesn't even happen. And why these elected officials would actually think it's okay to, sorry, we're having a Mufasa moment over here. My little.
That's why I'm here.
Yes, this is good. Mufasa
I'm here
is
to tame
is
the
not
wild
knocking over the
beast.
computer, but take a moment.
Here to tame the beast.
So we've got these public officials that are basically saying this is okay. We're going to bus you to a site, and you could potentially die, and you could potentially have something follow you home as a result of what's taking place. And to me, that goes beyond the pale. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like this at all. I mean, this could be a precedent. What do you think? Have you ever seen anything like this, Barry?
Well, I think you've heard lately of speculations about the hitchhiker effect, or I like to call it anomaly disease. That's, to me, a more descriptive term of what they're talking about. With radiation, that's a real world manifestation of that, in that if you go out and get radiated in a place like that, you can bring it home and you can get ill. That's genuine. But as far as the anomalous transmission of whatever they're trying to imply, that's far and away yet to be proven.
Yeah.
And so, what do you think at the end of the day will happen? Like, what do you perceive the response will be? We know that we saw something from Tom Winterton today talking about this and responding, which unfortunately, like I said, he didn't respond to your requests. But I mean, where do you see this is going? And should there be, should we reach out to the History Channel to see how they would react with allegations of this? To me, to have a channel like that where they're making millions upon millions of dollars on a show, and they're promoting absolute garbage. It can't be verified. Not only that, but they're telling people that are living around the area that they are going to get cancer as a result of UAP exposure. I mean, what culpability does the History Channel have when it comes to this type of thing?
I think that there's a certain amount of buyer beware that's inherent to capitalism. I'm not in a position to make decisions for a cable network or a for-profit capitalist venture. I certainly empathize with the moral implications of what you're saying, Erica. I just think that there is a certain degree that the consumer has of responsibility of believing or not what they see on in an ad on TV, in a television show, an unsupported claim people make. And that's what I think makes this story different, is it takes it out of the realm of capitalism and into county government that is paying people who have a career interest in promoting these stories to promote the stories some more to wider audiences and tourists. And I think that that's what makes it different. We also have EFR has records requests out for the financials from other conferences as well that our city sponsored, like Roswell specifically, I'm talking about in this instance. And I could be wrong, but what I think we're going to find is that Roswell is probably not paying people who are on television to talk about Roswell at a conference and tell unsupported stories. I think I could be wrong, but I am anticipating that the city of Roswell probably does advertising and sponsors a festival for capitalists to come into and sell their books and sell their documentaries and their various goods that may or may not promote an alien and unsupported story, as well as other potential explanations for the Roswell mystery as well. But I think that's again where it differs, is if a city or a county government, a chamber of commerce sponsors events and gives the capitalists an opportunity to sell their products and the consumer an opportunity to make decisions about them, is a different scenario from paying people to tell these stories, wildly sensational, arguably irresponsible stories about spreading cancer and whatnot among victims of this alleged paranormal phenomena. And that's what I think makes it a lot different.
Right. And I absolutely agree. And I mean, Barry, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I can't understand how they can make claims about radiation dangers there and not be scrutinized by some form of officialdom. I mean, if they're alerting people in the public that there's a problem here, where's the oversight? Who's monitoring this and saying, what do you have there? Show us the figures. It just seems like they're able to get away with this because it's some sort of a TV show, and they can fire away as much as they want on the program and pretty much get away with it. I'd have people down there saying, let us see what the problem areas are and what kind of danger there is.
Thank you. One of the things I thought was telling about that, Barry, is one of the responses from the Utah Department of Environmental Quality explicitly stated that they have had no events or incidents filed by the owner of the property and are not in communication with the owner or representatives of the property. So they are in no position to investigate further and have no means to do so at this point in time. And people could, of course, could interpret that as rather telling as well.
But I mean, haven't they already made clear that there is a dangerous problem there that could affect people, and by the fact that was reported publicly, be the notice to officialdom about that?
I do not know. I don't understand. I do not have an awareness of the legal protocol of at what point people show up with badges and say we need to check the property. I don't know.
And I think that's a great point. And I think, unfortunately, like I have mentioned, when I went to the conference, 8 months ago, and I saw Travis Taylor talking, and I went up to him and asked him, okay, so if there are problems taking place, if there are dangerous levels of ionizing radiation, what are you doing to inform the neighbors around the ranch? What are you doing to, work with federal officials? And he just said, well, that's what TV show's for. And so to me, and I'll never forget that statement. I knew it was just like, whatever. He didn't care. He didn't care. He clearly did not care. And I think that you have to say, does he not care because he knows it's crap? Or does he not care because he's not an ethical human being? And so either way, you've got to ask these questions. And I think when you're going out there and you're promoting specific things and people are experiencing, in my opinion, people that are perhaps vulnerable mentally, that are getting involved with all of this. I mean, there are a lot of ramifications. This isn't just like saying I'm going to Comic-Con. This isn't like saying this is a fantasy. These are all games, and this is an alternate reality. This is like people going on record time after time saying this is real. We have done more research than anybody else in the world, which we know is not true. That is not true. You can't verify that, Fugle. You can't. You're full of it. We know that. But, you've got people making these statements, and then people who are, living in the area, who are, subjected to this, are believing that. And that is really, to me, that is really sick. It is probably, I would imagine that there could be some ramifications legally to promoting that, specifically when you've got our state or local officials spending money, taxpayer money, to promote this kind of nonsense that is absolutely harmful and not factual. I mean, what do you think about that?
Oh, I think I'd be suing the pants off them if I went to Skinwalker Ranch and I became ill because of things that they claimed were there, whether it's radiation or the hitchhiker effect. If I went home and grew ill, I'd want to sue the pants off them. I just wouldn't accept that they thought it was okay to do that to me.
It is a concerning series of events. The aspects of it from a oversight and administrative point of view are mutually exclusive of one another. If you believe this, you should not be inviting people to the area, and you should be giving authorities the resources they need, the reports, the go ahead to conduct a competent investigation. And if you don't believe it and you are capitalizing financially or otherwise off of the narrative and using taxpayer funds to do so, raises a whole nother series of ethical questions. And I think yet another point that deserves mention is the use of the term science as a means to give unscientific activities more credibility than they deserve or have earned.
Right.
And these people, many of them very much represent this as scientific activity and scientific investigation taking place at the ranch. For instance, Sharon Hill, a writer and researcher, has done a lot of work on the use of what she calls sham inquiry, where you use impressive technology and try to make things sound scientific, yet by definition do not follow systematic, careful research protocols that is what makes something scientific. And we have a strong presence of that in this scenario as well.
Yeah, we ran into that years ago when I was involved with the local MUFON organization, that we wanted science to be a big part of what was done. We wanted the national group to include it as the standard by which to construct their investigations. And they tended to throw the term science around quite a bit. Everything that they did was scientific, all the inquiries, and yet time and time again, things they were actually doing weren't that at all. And I became very bothered by that. And I finally I think in 1987, up and quit. I grew weary of the false claims that were being endorsed. And being within the organization, I was expected to defend it. I was not going to defend what they were doing. So that was it. I was gone.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think Erica can too, about MUFON and claiming scientific study and then doing things that by definition are not scientific. And I think where we get into trouble with that is a lot of people just consider science to be a synonym for sincerity, or this is serious. They're doing thorough work, and call it scientific. And of course, there are other qualities that work has to have to be scientific, other than you're not lying, or you're serious about it. You really mean it. You know, you're working hard doesn't make something science.
Well, and I mean, I think the fact that, from the beginning, since Brandon Fugel allegedly, bought the property, allegedly, because who knows what name the property is actually under. But, you've got him saying that he has an open kimono, which in and of itself, if you look that saying up, is pretty racist, and you could, go have a great time with that one. But you look at him saying he's going to be transparent, he's going to work with different researchers, he's going to do A, B, C, and D, and he's never done any of that. What he's done is he's invited a lot of people in in the in the world that can promote his narrative onto the ranch, giving them a tour. And oh my gosh, we're going to look at all of this collection that we've got. We've got all these little toys here. I mean, it's like the mind of a 12-year-old over here. And we've got all of these things, and this is great. And so that's diverting away from the scientific research that allegedly is being done at the property, because it's focusing on Brandon Fugel. It's focusing on all of the things that he needs to have in his orbit to make himself feel relevant. And where's science in there? Where's the information? Where is his willingness to work with other people to provide data? Where it's hollow. And so I think all of us know this, but it's very curious to see how this is unfolding, and how, when we've done research like Jack and I have done, and we're calling this out because we've got grammar requests, we've got statements from public officials that are asking questions. Where is that going to lead?
Yeah. I'm going to bug out for a couple of minutes because I'm getting a rather remarkable headache from this eyepiece.
Oh dear. Okay,
So
bug out.
I'll be back.
Aye, Captain.
Oh, that's awesome. And so Jack, first of all, congratulations. So
it's the black
there's
cat on Halloween.
Oh.
That is so cute. But anyway, congratulations on a job well done. You and I have both we talk every day, and we are doing a lot of digging behind the scenes. And so what we just put forward is just the tip of the iceberg. And I think the great thing, and I will give, hats off to you. And this is why I like working with you. You understand that this isn't just about the UFO topic. This is the UFO topic has been used and abused and manipulated by people that understand that they can get in there and create a grift. They can create a narrative where they're potentially moving funds over here and then doing things that aren't necessarily promoting good research. And so I just have to say that I really am thrilled to work with you.
Thank you. I have really enjoyed the collaboration, and it's meaningful to me too. Thank you. I think you're definitely right. The UFO topic and fringe topics have, for generations been the targeted demographic of people with less than honorable intentions and money grifters. And the current scenario that we have, and the conferences that are going on and whatnot, we often we can't really identify if people are sincere or incompetent. And there's an argument to be made that we don't really need to, in order to, or if they're insincere or incompetent. Like, are they grifting, or are they just really that credulous? And we don't really need to be able to identify that conclusively in order to still identify that they have not presented evidence in proportion to the claims that they're making. But then another aspect of that, when you roll up your sleeves and you get in here, as you were saying, and Erica knows these people, she's talked to them, she's familiar with them. I have conducted quite a bit of correspondence over the months and years. And what I find is credulous people generally don't shy away from talking to you about their beliefs. And if they are sincere, they really aren't that worried about trying to defend their belief. Where a lot of people in the UFO scene over the past several years, well, always, but the ones I have had as subjects of some of the work I've done, repeatedly obstruct efforts to get at certain information. And that to me is not something you see among people that are simply sincere but wrong, or really believe in vortexes and dogmen coming through them. When you see people that like actively try to manipulate your opinion and where you're going with a story, and hide the information you ask for, change the topic when you when you try to get data from them that they said they have, and then when you try to get it from them, they want to talk about something else that they claim is important and interesting. That is not things that, in my experience, sincere yet misguided people do.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I totally appreciate that. And thank you very much. And so I would like to know, because clearly I've got somebody walking through here, and we have somebody Amy in chat wants to know what, Jack, your little kitties' names are.
They are the sweeties. Would you like me to tell the story of how they became the sweeties? They were found literal ferals wandering on the street, and some of them were brought to where I live, and they were just little puffballs at that time. It's been a few years now. They were fully feral cats, and they didn't really get the hang of the litter box concept. And they would stand in the litter box, but they'd miss the litter box with their business. So as a joke, I would say, they're so sweet. They know I come and collect this stuff, so they put it where it's easier for me to find. Right out here in the floor. So they are the sweeties.
That's sweet. That's great.
Yeah, I know that can be a problem. The older you get, the more that can happen to people too.
Oh dear.
Oh,
that explains it.
Lots of information on this.
It's that's why I'm investing into pens. Maybe I can get Peter Thiel and Eric Weinstein to put some.
Well, I already look like riffraff, so all I gotta do is just put a coat on, and I'm good to go.
Yeah. So I have to just give a shout out to everybody who's watching and listening. I love you guys, and thanks for letting us just have a good time. Oh my goodness. And is that Sweetie 1 or 2?
They're just
two of them.
Kind of the sweeties. Yeah, there's a pair of them.
They are so cute. That's great. So anyway, so thank you so much for sharing the sweetie story. And I want to again just say thank you, all of you guys, for supporting my work at UFO Classified, and then also expanding Frontiers Research. I think this is so much, it is so interesting. And I think for me, having dealt with things over the years and wanting to make a change, and understanding that there are things going on that we should be aware of. And I'm sorry, I'm just like, wow, we've got Death Cat 2000, like just kind of buzzing around. I know. Anyway, so I appreciate that. So anyway, we're going to add Barry to the stream. And I want to just take a moment to say, okay, Susan is here.
Hello.
And again, I introduced her to begin with. Susan she's been one of my friends for 20 years. And Susan and she came into my Pilates studio with her sister. And and she came in and she was just like, okay, we want to do Pilates. And so I was super stoked because I love her and her sister, and they decided they were going to, oh my Lord, Mary, Margaret, and all the holy people. They decided that they were going to do Pilates, and then they became certified. So I certified both of them, and then we went over to England, and they actually did their certification there and tested out over in England. And then we stayed in all the haunted castles all the way down, which And it was like so much fun. And so let's talk about this because, you know, we understand what's going on with the ranch and the powers that be, but let's like spend the rest of the time talking about fun, like Halloween things.
Well, and
Because-
this is how I know Erica. This is like, she wasn't into UFOs back then. Like, I think it came up occasionally, jokingly, but it was mostly the paranormal. And that's what we were into at that point. So this stuff is all new for me. I'm just sitting back. I'm just her sidekick tonight.
But we had like I trained Becca and
Mhm.
Susan. They both worked in my
Mhm.
studio, and they still do. And we had so much fun because back in, oh my gosh, the late
90s.
Yeah, late 90s. Was it the late 90s? My God, I feel old.
Yeah.
We
were 12.
well, 12, maybe 5 or 6, but we I lived in a wonderful
Castle.
place that was, I felt kind of haunted. It was
Mhm.
very cool. Susan came there many times. We had great parties. And it was just a wonderful time. And so when I decided to go over to England to do the test out for Pilates,
Mhm.
I said, you know, Susan, Becca, let's go. And we invited another friend to go over there. And so we went to England. I tested out students from all over Europe. And then, like, I decided, and you guys were like so great. Okay, we're gonna go to
We went along.
Lep Castle, Kennedy Castle,
Mhm.
all the way down. And
Mhm.
you know, we went. Like, tell us about Kennedy.
I don't know. You disappeared. I do remember that. I do remember you disappearing at one point. So make of that at what you will. But that's where we had that creepy statue.
Yeah. So Susan and I had like
Well, we were sharing a room, and then I ducked out
and
because there was a creepy shit statue.
Okay, yes. So anyway, you're going to hear stories that you probably never wanted to hear. But anyway, this is UFO Classified Halloween style. So we were staying at Kennedy Castle, and the whole thing, and I'd seen them on Haunted Castles of Europe or something. There was some like ghost show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to stay there. This is so cool. And there was like a suite where somebody was
the most
off.
haunted suite.
Yes, of course. It's
which we
good.
volunteered.
You know, I mean, yeah. So it was like, okay, we're going to stay there, and the bride leapt to her death, right? And things, and so we get to the, you know.
Oh, and then the children in the hallway. There's always that story.
Yeah, the children in the hallway. So we get there, and we're just like, oh my gosh. Okay, so we're here, and okay, do you really want to stay in this room? Do you understand what's happened?
Well, no, there was a disclaimer. It was like we need to put this out here. Do you really? Yes.
Do you want to stay here? And you know, we will not change your sheets. I mean, it's like, I mean, they literally said this. It's like, okay, we will leave sheets out by your door.
Like they're not coming in the room.
No,
they
they're
did not
not.
want to go
This
in.
was very good. Acting 101. They must have had a great close-knit acting community. But, you know, so it was like, oh my gosh. So we're here and we're like staying there. And it's like, of course, we want to stay in that room. Bring it on. And so we went up the creepy castle stairs.
God, that was good.
And then, you know, we get in there and it's like this beautiful suite. And we see this little.
Oh, I wish you could put that picture
up.
God,
I know I should put the picture up. I'll share it at some point in time. But so Susan and I are staying there. I've got Becca, Susan's sister, and another client of mine. And so we're in this castle. They've got their room. We've got our room. And there's like this little creepy
staring at us all night.
It's this little statue. It's like some sort of trollish thing. I don't even know what's going on, but it scarred me for life. I mean, literally. And so like Susan and I are like sitting in the bed and we're like, oh, okay, this is great. You know, this is creepy. There's a little statue.
But then I do remember we were downstairs. You stayed downstairs. I was not going to stay in that room alone. So I went in with my sister and our friend. And I think I fell asleep. And I don't know what happened to Erica.
Well, okay, so here's the real story. So we're, you know, like, here is the real story.
Here's
Let me just tell you, because she went to bed.
I did.
Yeah. So I was with the castle owner. I can't even remember his name. Who knows? Whatever. And
just
so
berating him with questions.
Well, I mean, I was because it's like, I'm going to go to Ireland. It's like, I want to know this stuff. You're on TV. You're promoting paranormal stuff. And so we're sitting by the hearth and, talking about all of this. And as the conversation evolved, later in the morning, it was like, well, okay, we kind of, the Ouija board thing, that was kind of a tourist thing. We just kind of made it up and yada, yada, yada. So it was like, I'm sitting here going, I just came to your castle and you're telling me that you've made everything up. This is like bad. Like just,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
But I was having a good time, Irish whiskey, good times.
It was a
good
beautiful
times.
castle.
And so then I go back up at 4 a.m. and I'm hearing that there are like stories that are creepy. And we went to the bar, like we went all through the castle. And
with your whatever machines you had.
Some sort of machines.
Wasn't there a priest involved in this too?
Was there a priest involved?
Or a monk?
Oh God. Well,
I think there was
there was a monk or priest.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're there and we're just like, okay, going through all of this. And then after all of that excitement, which was really amazing and beautiful, but then, so I'm talking to the castle owner and then I go back to the hotel room, and Susan's not there. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this is really creepy and not good, even though the castle owner just told me none of this is even true. But I see this little statue in the corner and I'm like, oh my Lord, Mary. So I'm trying to sleep. Here's this little creepy.
Just picture you knocking on the door.
Oh my Lord. I mean, like I will find pictures and show this to you. And I can tell you that this, you will never see this broadcast again because it's going to be live and I'll delete this. But anyway, so, I mean, here you've got this creepy little thing and I'm like, oh, okay. And so I decide that I'm going to go down and find my friends because I can't sleep by myself. And so I walk down the castle, corridor.
I don't think you were very quiet. I think you were
pretty
much
you
running.
Can't be quiet when you're walking down a castle corridor. You've got these old planks and, and stuff. And I'm just like, Mama, it's like 4 a.m. And so like I get to their door and I'm like this big, hinge and I'm like, let me in.
I was sleeping through it.
Yeah.
It was my sister.
Of course you were. And so the next day I get up and I'm just like, they wouldn't let me in. And I'm like, oh my Lord. So I go back and I couldn't sleep. And so the next day I get up and go to brunch and all of them were sitting there just going,
we had the most amazing experience.
Yeah, we are so frightened. Somebody came up to the door and they shook it and they said, let me in. And I'm like, okay, like even here. And
the fact that I said frozen in bed, the three of us like, in this triple king size bed,
oh my God,
frozen.
Like 3 grown women, just like, oh my God, oh my God. Yeah. And what I did, it wasn't even like it was just, let me in. It
Where
was
did you
dude,
sleep that
let
night,
me
by
in.
the way?
Dude, let me in. And so,
I
slept in, I didn't sleep. I was really traumatized. I had to turn the statue around. Anyway, so that was one of our really amazing adventures in Ireland. And then we went down to Leap Castle.
Oh my God, that was great.
Which I will say, like, Barry, have you ever heard of Leap Castle at all?
No.
Well, this is good. Jack, have you ever heard of Leap Castle?
I can't say I have, but I am not your castle guy.
Okay.
I mean, really not saying anything that I haven't heard of.
So Leap Castle is the most haunted castle in Ireland.
That's what they tell us.
Dun, dun, dun. Like, everything is the most haunted, wherever. But Leap Castle is kind of a crazy place, and it was on all these TV shows, and it was really fun. And there was the most amazing man that owns the castle named Sean Ryan. And so you couldn't get in because it's private residence. And so we had to, in fact, I think we talked to, the guy at Kennedy Castle who knew I had the goods on him, could put the screws to him.
She got him drunk. And
no, it was just like, okay, I know you're completely, anyway, so he called Sean Ryan and Sean Ryan agreed to let us in. And so here we come, Susan, Wendy, Becca, and, all of us, and we get to Leap Castle, and this wonderful Irishman comes up to the door and he like opens it, and he's got this kind of like wispy blonde hair and a little cap, and he's just like a typical typical Irishman. And he welcomes us in, and he's just like, well, come in and I'll give you the tour. And we actually like came in, and he was talking about all of the hauntings that went on in this castle, but we stopped at the fireplace, and we sat there at the fireplace for upwards of 2 hours.
In his private quarters, yeah.
Yes, in his private quarters. And so we had this roaring fire going, and we were talking about ghosts and all of these things. Cool. And then I brought up the fact that I was a musician, and he's like, well, you're a musician. He was one of the most, I guess he's a tin whistle player, one of the best in the world, actually. And his daughter is an Irish dancer who has won awards all over the world. And so, I said, okay, I'm a musician. He's like, well, wait a minute. We're going to get some Irish whiskey, and we're going to have a performance by the fire. And so he got on the phone, and he called his friend Bob down the way. And it took Bob 20 minutes to get up to the castle. And Bob came up, and he was 80 years old, right? Yeah. And he sets up a keyboard. And then we start jamming. And so we're doing like freaking, moon dance. We're doing all of these things. Bob is like the most brilliant jazz musician. And then here you've got Sean Ryan, who's playing the tin whistle. And it was just like, okay, so even if there are no spirits anywhere, like this is the most amazing moment, because I'm here in this haunted castle, even if it's not, like all of this history. And I'm sitting here with two people I don't know. And I'm sitting here, making music and just having like the time of our life. I mean, it's like one of those moments that you look back at. And to me, that will always be one of the most precious moments of my life, because I could travel across the seas with my friends, and then make music and just sit there. And it was like, wow, this is cool.
It's a good trip.
Yeah. So.
Wow. All the way on the other side of the planet.
Yeah. It was very cool. Yep. So even if ghosts, UFOs, whatever's happening, do we believe it? I don't know. Just like meeting people and connecting with them and making music and having that common bond is probably one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. So.
Good for y'all.
Wow.
Good one.
Yeah.
I've never been in a haunted house, but I know nearby here in eastern New England, there are many places that are alleged to be like that. I think about 25 minutes from here, there's a house in Ipswich, and it was the subject of the movie The Flowers in the Attic.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that a number of people wanted to know about that because they saw the movie and wanted to see the real thing. And they do have tours of this place. It's quite an elaborate mansion. It's right on the ocean too, so it's very atmospheric at times with the fog rolling in and all. But New England's full of those places.
History is fascinating. Love the history.
Yeah.
Whether it ties into paranormal or not, it's just amazing, fascinating history.
I know, it was so much fun. I love it. And I've got to just say that my dad's here. Did I mention that? I think I did.
Oh. Welcome, Dad.
I think
hello.
He's over there. He's over there to the side.
Happy Halloween.
Yes, he is.
Is he doing one of those wonderful Western paintings?
Dad, what are you working on now?
I'm working on one of those.
Western fabulous one.
Working on a red rock painting.
Oh, good. Okay, so if a couple years ago I did a show with my father, which is actually really great. You can find that on YouTube, and we talked a little bit about some of his experiences. But my father is one of, he's probably one of the best artists, I think, in the world. And he's created a style of art that is very unique to him. And so unlike me, I cannot do what he does, but he spends probably 200 hours on a square inch.
Wow.
And so his art it's like realism. You look at it and everybody thinks it's photographs. So come here.
You can take my spot.
That's okay, Dad. Come over. He can come over. He's coming over.
right.
We can't see it.
All right.
Oh, there's this dad.
Bald guy here.
So this is my father, Jeffrey Blackburn. And if you go look on his website, you can see all of the wonderful paintings that he has done over the years. And Dad, your paintings have been in the White House, right?
Wow.
Wow.
And tell us a little bit more about that.
Paintings in the White House.
Well,
So I don't know what else to say about that.
What administration? I mean, did it cover multiple ones, or did particular presidents express interest in this?
Reagan had one, and various people have had them. I mean, I've just done a lot of work. I specialize in red rock paintings. That's what I've been doing for several years.
several years, 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan for sure. I mean, yeah, I remember Death Valley days and the 20 Mule team and all with him, and he was that was his milieu, the West. It was great out there during those times.
Yeah, so my father's name is R. Jeffrey Blackburn, and you can go to his website and see his paintings, which are just amazing. I go over, and I need to come over again. I'm really excited to come over and hang out with you. But when you go look at his works, it's like you can spend literally hours just looking at a square inch of the painting, because he spends all of these hours just going in and then creating, a layer upon layer, and it's just absolutely amazing. So
I'm really OCD is what the word is, or anal retentive, if you want to put it the other way. So my paintings one of my paintings took almost 2,000 hours to paint.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So I'm sort of, like I said, OCD.
I don't have that problem.
What was it of, Mr. Blackburn?
What's it?
That
Pardon?
painting. What was that painting?
It's I spent a lot of time working in the uranium business, doing prospecting and drilling for uranium. So I understand geology of the area that I worked in, and so I did a lot of stuff that my paintings are geologically accurate, and so I like to really get into that and make the paintings kind of do stuff that other artists don't do. And I just sort of take it way beyond what any normal, sane person would do. And I just sort of follow my paintbrush into the painting, and I just sort of escape into the painting. And I just keep following my brush into the painting. And you sort of escape, and I just sort of, I don't know, it's kind of a strange process. I just go into it, and I wonder what's going to happen behind this rock, or what's going to happen behind that rock. And I just keep going in further and further, and pretty soon I'm 1,000 hours into it and go, wow. So it's sort of like when you go on a road trip. I don't know if you do this, but when I go on a road trip, I'll listen to audiobooks. And what I'll do is I'll fire up an audiobook or several audiobooks, and I'll listen to an audiobook, and I'll just start painting. And away I go. So,
I see. Thank you.
How many paintings have you done?
I don't have a huge body of work. I've got, 40 or so, something like that. Not too many. Not when it takes thousands of hours to paint them. But, they come out pretty well.
Well, that's quality above quantity.
Yeah. Well, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm just doing it because sort of fascinates me, and I just keep doing it.
Yeah,
Oh,
there you go. Thanks, Mario.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean it's amazing because it's like when you see these, it's like you could just step off that rock,
How'd you
and
get that up there?
so Mario was like showing the photos. Mario, could you like put a couple of their paintings up there? That's really cool. Like I have to say I'm definitely proud of my father and his accomplishments, and there isn't an artist like him on the planet. And so I think it's amazing. And I will say that I could never be like him.
You wouldn't want to be.
Well, no, that's not true. It's just that I can't. It's like you're so meticulous and OCD, and I'm like, okay, one brushstroke, and in and done, and things, and so
Well,
it
you have
is.
your own style.
I do have my own style. Dad, what do you think of my own style?
Everybody has their own voice, so you need to develop your own voice. It's what doesn't make any difference what medium you're working in, whether it's paint or poetry or real estate or whatever it is. You find your own voice, and so I've developed my own voice with paint, and with regards to if I'm painting red rock, then I've developed over the years a style or a way of applying paint. Basically, what you're doing, I mean, this kind of takes the romance out of it. That's the one that took almost 2,000 hours to paint.
Oh, yeah.
And that one, it's basically, it's sort of like a kind of an alchemy. It's sort of like creating three-dimensional space on a two-dimensional surface. And I seldom paint the things right side up. I'm painting them upside down and sideways, and I look at them through mirrors,
Wow.
all that sort of stuff. So you're looking at them in all different ways, and whoever ends up owning the thing ultimately will never see them as I see them, because they always look at them right side up. But
That's
there's
amazing.
there's a lot of dimensions to them that you just don't see them unless you're actually seeing the actual painting in person. But I work with glazes, and I hardly use any paint at all. On my website, there's a video that this master artist from Australia came up and did an interview, and I show a little bit of the most recent way I apply paint, which is one of my later techniques, and I show how I do, or how I've evolved my style, and I hardly use any paint at all. I work with
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
I work with glazes, and this is a whole different technique that I was using back then. And these are fairly opaque style.
Well,
Fascinating.
the sky in that painting sure looks like the way it looks around here 3/4 of the year.
Yeah, that one I did for Max Anderson was one of the three guys that were the first guys that crossed the Atlantic in a balloon way back in the early '80s. I did that for Maxie. He was quite an interesting guy.
Yeah, I mean, look at the light and the shadow and everything. It's like, wow, it's in 9 Mile Canyon. Yeah, have you ever done anything with 9 Mile Canyon, Dad?
I don't know, possibly.
Oh, I love this. That is so cool. So what is that? Tell us about that.
I can't even remember. I've done so many. I've spent so much time looking at that red rock that after a while it just kind of, it's just, if you think about what you're looking at, it's like 1/25th of a second. I'll spend, hundreds and hundreds of hours looking at 1/25th of a second. So your sanity sort of disappears at a certain point. Mine is long gone.
There's some really interesting metaphors in the process you're describing. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah,
That's so beautiful.
see what you're really doing, if you take the romance out of it, all that's really actually happening is you're taking little bits of colored stuff, that's colored particles that are suspended in goo, and you're wrangling it into position with a stick with hair on it, which is about all that's really actually happening there.
And so this is Road to Sedona.
Yeah, and that's actually a very small painting. It's about 3 or 4 inches tall by about 20 inches wide. Very small.
Wow.
Very small painting.
What led you to decide to do it that way?
Yeah, I do them with the super detail, and then when I reproduce them, we do them in super high resolution, so you can blow them up to the side of a building, and they retain their detail.
Wow.
I mean, it's truly they're stunning to be in front of, and yeah, this is Road to Sedona. Is one of my favorite photos, and this is something that you did. What year did you do this?
Which one?
This right here.
I don't know. The date's on there, isn't it? It's down at the bottom there somewhere. I think it's probably 06, somewhere in there. my style kind of evolves. This was earlier in the. I stopped painting for about 10 years. I periodically just stop and then work on something else. Like I've been working on my book for the last several years, and I stopped painting for about 4 years and just started painting again. In fact, I just resumed here recently.
Oh, I'm excited about that. I mean, and honestly, Dad, we should go to Ireland. Scott, you just don't come to Ireland. Utah's more beautiful. I think actually we could have a great time in Ireland painting.
Yeah, I'd love it, but I'd have to clone myself. In fact, I'd like to clone myself, but
Well, I'm sure the men of the world would like to have me cloned.
Oh,
I'm just
I
saying.
mean, that's what they say.
It's true. They do say that.
I think they'd like to turn you into a dino-beaver at Skinwalker.
You know what? I mean, clearly.
Dino
I
beaver.
take my makeup off, get the cold cream, dinobeaver.
There you go.
It's true. It happens. How did you know? But so this is one of your first pieces, right?
That's something I did back in the 70s when I first started out. That's a whole different style of painting. I was painting with very opaque paint and thick brush strokes and all this stuff. I don't paint at all like that anymore. Totally different way of painting now. It's early in my career.
Yeah, it's amazing. That is really cool. Yeah, and if Mario, if you could like find another picture. Thank you so much, Mario, for actually putting this on here. This is really, really cool.
Thank you, Mario.
Mario rocks. Yeah, so you can go to our,
On the fly, too.
I know, on the fly. Look at, oh my.
Mm.
Wait, go back to, oh, wow. Wow.
That's a nice fall scene.
When did you do that?
Oh, God, I don't know. It's
Put him on the spot.
70,
I know, I am.
72 or somewhere in there.
He did it in the fall.
Yeah. Yeah, in the fall, somewhere in there. A long time ago. I was doing for a while there. Actually, if I was left to my own devices, I would be doing some really strange psychedelic stuff is what I was doing there for a while. I'm a surrealist nature. I do kind of Dali sort of stuff, but I haven't painted that way for many years.
Well, back in the late 60s, what you were doing.
I was doing psychedelic skiers and very strange stuff. Back when I was married to your mother.
Oh, dear. Don't blame that on Mom.
No, I wasn't blaming on her. When I was really doing the stuff that I actually would do, well, never mind.
Well, you're psychedelic.
Well, no, that was after that period. I was doing some strange stuff. I was doing psychedelic skiers and, all that sort of stuff.
Well, and planets, you were doing a lot of.
Yeah, planetary stuff. I was doing some of that.
Yeah, we'd like someone to do a rendition of the fourth dimension who has some skill. Actually,
interesting you'd mentioned that. My book kind of gets into that in a kind of a roundabout sort of way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you should, Dad, talk about your book.
Oh, well, you can actually, there's actually a link to my book on my website there. If you want to describe it.
Okay.
I'll let you, this is this little bit right here.
Okay.
I'll let somebody else describe it. This is the review.
So, how life navigation for people who think. So this is your new book, right?
Yeah, this is a review.
Okay, cool. So how life navigation for people who think by R. Jeffrey Blackburn is a groundbreaking work that provides a powerful tool for effective thinking. This is a book for people who want to make things happen, people who want to create ideas and transform those ideas into tangible reality. It is a guide for thinkers, one that allows them to navigate life successfully, find solutions to complex issues, adapt to changes, and be capable of getting just about anything they want. This book teaches readers how to think. It defines a process that works with any kind of idea. So, I mean, there's much more there.
Yeah, what this is. The book talks about the creation processes, how to take something out of your head and bring it into physical existence. So you're talking about two different dimensions. You're talking about the dimension that's here, which is a different universe than the physical universe, right? So you're spanning universes. So Yeah, so that was some stuff I did in the 70s. I mean, not the 70s, in the 90s. Those are my space paintings.
Dang.
And you'll see a little little thing that looks like a little plume
Oh,
of smoke,
Lordy.
but it's not a plume of smoke. What it is my partner and I drilling for uranium. It's a plume of dust from our drill rig.
Hey, how's your health? I mean,
Well, I glow in the dark.
okay, well, clearly.
That helps.
Yeah, it does. I can find myself in the dark when I'm.
I mean, dang. That's amazing. I mean, and I always loved I love that because you did that like back in the late 60s.
No. I did that in the 90s. I did that
Oh.
about
Oh,
90s.
this is surreal.
Yeah.
What? Tell us about that.
I destroyed that painting. I did something else to it, and I regret what I did to it because I ruined it. So that's basically a destroyed painting. The only image of that is, these digital images of this. So basically, I was just, I don't know. It's hard to explain that. That's how I kind of see the Red Rock. When I was living out there in the Red Rock, it seemed like all that red rock could be, when I was living out there in the Red Rock for 10 years, it seemed like you could see flying saucers or, whatever, UFOs just landing in the middle of the desert. It would seem perfectly reasonable to see that kind of an experience out there in the middle of the desert when I was living out there. So I just,
Was that the uranium though?
yeah, that's when I was out there doing the uranium.
But I mean,
drilling.
could that be contribute? I mean, uranium.
Yeah, it made
Well,
me
I mean-
crazy is what happened.
Okay.
No, so this one here is this is a reversible diptych. So what this is I painted two paintings that are reversible. So you could take that and flip them back and forth in different directions. And so they were like mirror images of each other. So I made these red rock pieces. So you could flip them end to end, side to side, and you get all these really strange images out of it.
Clearly.
Yeah, so it was kind of if you're like a stoner, you could really get off on that.
Yeah, it reminds me of Avatar.
Pardon me?
Reminds me of Avatar.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's
after you mentioned you turn them different ways to paint them, I could envision that happening with some of them.
Yeah, so while I'm painting them, I hardly ever paint anything right side up while I'm painting.
Right.
Dang. I mean, so
it wasn't. It was just inspired by my own strange brain. Is what it was inspired by.
but I mean, why?
Why what?
Well, I mean, where? Like, why, where, how did you, how did you come up with this? Like what was your starting point?
I don't know. It's hard to explain. It just seemed, I don't know. It just seemed like, I don't know. I can't really explain why. When I was living out there, you see a sea of stars out there at night. I mean, the stars were intense out there. I was living up at the top of Castle Valley, right? We had 8,500 acres. We were drilling for. So we would get up in the middle of the night and be out there looking at the most astonishing things right at the top of Castle Valley. And so you'd just see the most astonishing things every night. So you see this ocean of stars, and then you see the red rock, and you see all these just amazing things. And so I just put the two things together, and I thought, what the heck? And I'll just have all this red rock floating in space. I don't know, it just seemed like, for a surrealist like myself, that I just have it all floating in space. I don't know.
Yeah, you can see that in two ways too. You can see rocks floating in space, and you also get the impression that it could be water reflecting night sky.
Yeah,
from above.
I always kind of like these pieces, but I've kind of got these kind of in storage. I don't ever show these to anybody
until next weekend. Until actually, we're gonna do an art show here. Yes, we are.
Outstanding.
Yeah, this one's a fairly large
Yeah, that's
piece.
cool.
Yeah, and that's, again, that little plume of smoke is actually, I mean, that's an impossible place for that to be.
Hmm.
But that little plume of smoke is actually, it's not smoke, it's it's the dust from our drill rig. So it's just me,
It's like a signature.
Yeah, it is. It's just my partner and I, our drill
Excellent.
rig.
So, I mean, like, what do you like for your health? I mean, that's, uranium. You're out there with,
Drilling uranium,
Yeah, I mean-
breathing uranium
Yeah,
dust.
I mean,
Yeah, I'd
well,
probably be dead in another week or two. But
well, that's comforting.
yeah, we had,
Oh my God, my dad is going to be dead in a week. Exclusive UFO Classified.
yeah, we had some really great uranium property, and we had some really, really hot uranium. In fact, on this one particular property we were drilling on was where Madame Curie apparently got her uranium from way back in the
Holy smokes.
30s, 40s.
So, where did you get that information from?
From my former father-in-law, who apparently was, I don't know where the hell he got it from, but the uranium was so rich on this particular property. Uranium will go into there used to be all these radioactive trees, literal trees. So the uranium would go into the tree, into these petrified trees, and the trees would turn this bright, incredible, intense yellow carnotite. And so you'd find that actually back in the 50s, the only place you could sell the uranium was to the Atomic Energy Commission. So back during the 1950s, when we were racing the Russians for uranium, my father-in-law at the time, he was part of the original guys out there drilling for uranium and mining for uranium. He and his crew were out there mining the uranium off the surface, taking all these trees. And so they apparently, it was real easy to get that uranium because it was sitting there right on the surface in these big radioactive trees. And so according to him, Madame Curie's, they got some of the original carnotite uranium and got it from Wilson Mesa, where she got, the original U-235 for her experiments they work with. Apparently right from Wilson Mesa, right from our property. And boy, that stuff is really hot. Actually, I can show that to you. I've got it at home.
Oh my God.
I had big hunks of it sitting in my
Balls. Are you really?
Oh yeah, I had big hunks of it sitting in my on my fireplace. Had big. I mean, it's beautiful stuff, and boy, it fluoresces like mad. You put
Oh
it.
my God. Seriously, dude? Dad, dude?
Oh yeah, you get some purple light, put it on there, and the thing's just beautiful. It's gorgeous looking stuff. You put a Geiger counter on it, and you go. It just goes crazy.
Well, I mean, I'm happy that I visited you a couple years ago. I mean,
You don't need a nightlight when I'm around.
Well, that's great. That's great.
Well, there's a hitchhiker effect right there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, well, so it was pretty interesting. We spent quite a bit of time. I spent about 10 years drilling for it, and it's pretty wild. I was right in the middle of all of that.
Sounds wild.
I mean, and so what happened? Were there other people out there trying to figure out where you were drilling? Like, was there some sort of international intrigue? Were there Russians involved?
There was all kinds of stuff I had dealt with. We had armed claim jumpers I had to deal with, and at one point we had 163,000 acres that we controlled. I mean, I was right in the middle of it. I was right in the middle of the last big uranium boom. I told you about all that, didn't I?
Well, I know, but you've not told the public.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
Where was that, Mr. Blackburn?
This is down in Moab, down around the Moab area, during the last big uranium boom during the 1970s. My company, North American Resources. Yeah, in Utah.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, it was
160,000 acres is a lot of land to cover.
Yeah, it was. It was amazing. It was an astonishing deal. See, I am an environmentalist. See, so that was considered clean energy. So they were hyping that. So everybody was trying to get out of fossil fuel. So everybody's going to go into nuclear fuel. So all of the big power companies were trying to fulfill their obligations to get nuclear fuel. And apparently they'd sold more nuclear reactors than they had fuel for. So everybody was scrambling, like Philips and General Electric and all these guys were scrambling to try to get fuel to power their reactors. And so everybody was going nuts down there. And so I managed to get myself right in the middle of all of that. And everybody was coming to me. And I had all the claim owners coming to me. And the power companies were coming to me. And it was great. I managed to situate myself right in the center of all that. So it was
good for you.
Yeah, it was fascinating. And it was funny because I dropped out of when I was in college. I managed to screw off during the whole. I took a geology class as you needed to have one science credit, and I took the science credit and managed to sit there and drink beer through the whole thing and goof off and managed to not learn a single thing. And then a few years later, I find myself married to my second wife. Was her dad was this old character right out of an old time Western movie. You see this guy coming out of the mountains with a burrow this guy would be, if you saw this guy, his name was Eamon Murley, and he looked, this guy was just unbelievable. He looks exactly like the classic guy you see coming out of the mountains out of the Superstition Mountains with a burrow. And this was my father-in-law, and he didn't think much of having an artist for a son-in-law. And so he said, I'm going to get you into something substantial like mining. And I went, oh my God. So anyway, I find myself, he has all this mining property. And so he got me into this. And the next thing I know, I'm up to my eyeballs in maps and claims and all this stuff. I knew not a single thing about it. And the next thing I know, I'm find myself digging into it, and I'm interviewing a judge and lawyers and all this stuff. And I read the 1872 mining laws, and I become an expert in the whole thing. And I just really dig in and become totally versed in the whole thing. And I'm right in the middle of this thing. And it was fascinating.
Wow.
It was just
Wow,
like,
that is fascinating.
it was right out of the Old West. It was just a fascinating deal.
Wow.
I mean, and so where did the Russians come in?
Well, that uranium one thing that Clinton just, when he sold all that uranium to, where they did that shady deal to the Russians. That whole deal. I actually did business with that company at one point.
And what was the name of the company?
Uranium One.
Okay.
That was all part of that. Yeah. Well, so there's, most of the players that were involved in all that, I'd done business with all those people at one point or another. It's like, it was kind of like a gigantic closed circuit. All these, I was doing business with Philips, and I met with the president of General Electric and, Philips and all the power companies and all this stuff. It was pretty heady stuff.
And what was the time frame of that?
This was all in the 1970s. This was the decade of 1971 to 1979, 1980.
Yeah.
Then the whole thing collapsed. I had a $27 million deal going with the French government in the state of Utah.
Wow.
What?
You didn't know about that?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what?
I came up with
True confessions.
I never told you about that?
No.
Oh.
Okay, on the record, Dad.
Oh, God.
French government. Here we go.
I didn't tell you about that?
No.
Oh, geez. Yeah, well, I came up with an idea for, there were two uranium mills, okay, at the time. I can't remember. One of them was Atlas, the one that was down at when you rolled into town in Moab, big nasty looking thing. Okay, that's where everybody was selling the uranium, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then there was another one down around Blanding. And the trouble was if you had a lot of uranium, you had two places you could take your ore to get your ore processed. Well, so if you're like General Electric or Philips or one of the big companies, you had to have your ore processed by one of your competitors.
Okay.
Atlas was competing with everybody, right? So you're basically getting screwed. If you're General Electric or one of the big companies like Philips, you're getting screwed, right? You take your ore in and you're having your ore processed by your competitor, which is not a good deal. So I came up with the idea. So why do that? Why don't we just, let's take all the ore that General Electric had and Philips had and all these other outfits. Let's create a co-op. I came up with the idea of, let's create a co-op. Let's take all of your ore that GE had, Philips had, all these different big companies had. Let's create a co-op. So I pitched that to the Governor Matheson,
Right. Oh.
and the state of Utah and Philips and General Electric and the big power companies. Let's take all of your ore and let's create a co-op. And then we can we'll create our own mill, and we can lease our trucks, and we can run the mill 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Instead of paying $40 a pound, we can process the ore for $4 a pound, and we can, we make a fortune. We, make a huge, make it a whole lot cheaper to process the ore, make a huge profit, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so everybody loved it. The governor loved it. And it was quite a colorful story. So
Brilliant.
Yeah, so it worked out great. So I went down to Coopers and Lybrand, which is a big accounting firm, had them put together a package for me, laying out the whole deal, what the co-op laws were for the state of Utah, which has particularly nice co-op laws. And then I put all that together in a package, took it to the governor. The governor loved it. And so they put me together with all the heads of the state, of all of the head guys in the state in Utah. So, and this was really a comical kind of a deal. So so the governor arranged to have me meet with the heads of the leaders of all of the divisions of the state of Utah, right?
Right.
So I rolled into a meeting. If you can imagine, picture this. Okay, so here's a meeting with all these old dry balls sitting in there in the big boardroom, right? And open the door, and I walk in. I'm in cowboy boots and Levi's, and I look fairly young. I was like 30 or something like that, 27 or something, 26, 27. And I roll in cowboy boots and Levi's, and all these old gray looking guys that all suited up. I walk in the door, and I walk in the door and they look at me and they go, "Where's your dad?" Or where's the guy that's going to be making the presentation? They're waiting for somebody else to come in behind me. And I walk in and close the door, and they're looking at me. Well, where's the other guy that's supposed to make the presentation? I says, "I'm the guy making the presentation." They're going, "What? I'm going, "Yeah." So I roll in there and I just start laying out, bam, 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 laying out all the facts. And they go, by the time I'm done, they're sitting there with their jaws on the table, because I know my facts. I know it cold, because the whole thing was my idea. I mean, I came up with the whole concept, the whole deal. By the time I'm done, they're going, "Oh, okay, all right." So anyway, they had it all laid out. So they laid out where the water was going to be. I had the whole thing. The whole state of Utah was just right up my beck and call. They laid out everything for me.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah. So so the French government was going to loan me $27 million, and the Pullman Torkelson was going to build it for me, and I had the whole thing all laid out. So it was all ready to go, and the French commercial consul in New York wanted me to fly out for during Christmas to close the deal in New York, and it was just during the Christmas holidays, right? So I was all ready to go out there and pen the deal, and so the French guy says, "Why don't you fly out?" I said, "Well, it's just before Christmas. Why don't we wait till after Christmas?" This was a big mistake. See, this is where I screwed up. Big mistake. So I said, "Well, why don't we wait till after Christmas?" That fatal flaw, big mistake. So I waited till after Christmas, and during that period, then the uranium cartel, a big cartel nobody knew about at the time, or I didn't know about certainly, and all of a sudden, the whole market collapsed during that period. During a 2-week, 3-week period, all of a sudden the Australian government released all of the uranium on the market, on the world market. And the whole market collapsed. It went from $40 a pound down to something like $4 a pound overnight. And the whole uranium market collapsed overnight. And the whole deal just evaporated. Boom. And the deal was off the table. Killed the whole deal.
Wow, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm not. I didn't really want to run a uranium mill anyway. But I mean, it was an interesting experience, but it's pretty exciting. Pretty heady sort of stuff,
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
Yeah, I flew down to San Jose and met with the president of General Electric, and I was in a limo and all this. It was really heady stuff for a
Wow.
26-year-old kid.
And who was the president at the time?
Whoever the president was in '76, I think Carter was. Yeah, something like that. It was pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
But it was those were really go-go days back in it was pretty fun stuff back in the day. So you had to experience it. Moab was a totally different place with big ore trucks rumbling up and down the street, and you'd sit in any restaurant place where everybody was smoking cigarettes, and ore trucks were rumbling up and down the street, and any place you went to, everybody was sitting around talking about deals. Whatever booth you were sitting in, you'd hear somebody $1 million, 150,000. Everybody was whispering. You could hear all these deals being done. You sit there in any bar you went to, everybody was talking deals, and there was no talk under $1 million. I mean, it was like
Wow.
gold fever. It was amazing.
Uranium rush.
Oh God, it was amazing. It was just, I was right in the thick of it. I had these guys trying to do deals with me. We were doing, we do some of the strangest deals. I remember sitting there doing, you'd be penning deals on soggy beer-soaked napkins at 2:00 in the morning, trying to stay sober enough so you could pen the deal. And if you didn't drink with these guys, they wouldn't do the deal with you. So you tried to stay sober enough to remember what the hell the deal was. I remember doing one deal with one guy. He said, "Well, I want a Jeep. I want a '62 Willys, or I want a Willys Jeep and a quart of Jose Cuervo, and I'll give you my 25 claims over here on the and we were doing deals like that all the time. And they signed the paper on a soggy napkin, and then off we go. We'd have
Write it in.
Yeah, we do deals like that all the time. And then I get a call from Phillips, and they say, "Hey, can you pick up this block of claims for us?" And then I get a call from the state and say, "Can you pick up these block of claims from these guys over here?" So I was right in the middle of it. I'd be the guy they'd call. And it was just a gas. It was just so heady. It was just like, if you ever seen the movie, what was it? Oh God, Paint Your Wagon. I was living Paint Your Wagon, except it was just amazing.
When you described your father-in-law, I was thinking of a Clint Eastwood movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I was living it. I was living it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. You're rattling around in a pickup trucks with all these semi-drunk characters or drunk characters.
Wow.
On some of these roads that just scare the hell out of you. I don't know, man. It's quite an experience. I had a good time. Scary time sometimes. Pretty wild. Anyway,
What are you
sounds
thinking
like-
about, Erica?
I'm just taking all of this in because the more I hang out with my dad, the more I realize it's whoa. And he also, I would love for my dad to share a story about working at Dugway.
I can't say much about that.
Okay. But my dad did work at Dugway, which you can't say much about, but I did live the first year of my life at Dugway,
Yes.
which is interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're probably radioactive too.
Oh, good.
Clearly.
No, there's no radioactive.
Obviously.
No, I didn't.
Erica, did you and Mario have anybody else wanting to show their costumes or anything?
You know what? Nobody else is, you guys, and I love you. We're all in chat. Nobody's wanting to show their costumes, but thank you. But I'm actually seeing great comments. Thank you, Jack.
I know that my creativity really stifles everyone else wanting to try. But
Well, we're gonna do Natasha.
don't be bashful.
No, I'd love your costume. And I really honestly wanted to do the time warp. That was my big thing. It's okay, we're going to do this. And I do actually have 4 people that are members of my Patreon. I did do a video with dinobeavers and skinwalkers. And
Let's see.
Oh my.
I did. It's kind of something that only people that can pay can see.
Oh dear.
But anyway. So, what do you think, though? Jack, this is amazing. So, Dad, tell us about Dugway, please.
Well, the only thing I'd say, I was like headquarters and headquarters company commander. So I was basically in charge of the troops, the guys that did some of the stuff out there. And I didn't do any of the confidential stuff. So I was just in charge of the troops. That was it. So, and then I worked at another place which I can't talk about. And that's all I can say. I got stationed up at another place that I can't talk about 6 months after they killed all the sheep, which I can't talk about.
So after they killed the sheep, though, that was like what, 1968, when they flew a plane over and annihilated what, 6,000, 7,000 sheep and
Yeah, it was 6,000 sheep. I think something like that. It was at Skull Valley. There was I think there was a leak of something. I don't know what it was because I wasn't even stationed there at the time, and I wasn't out at that. That was something out there. I had nothing to do with any of that. No, nothing about it.
But we were there. I mean, we were there after that happened.
Yeah,
And
I wasn't. We didn't get to Dugway until about a year or so after that, and I was at another place before I got to that place. I can't really get into any of that.
Dad, this is so mysterious.
Yeah, well, I glow in the dark too. So
I know you do, and clearly I need to go by your fireplace. My lord, what's happening there? But
remind me to show you that. It's beautiful stuff. It's yellow carnotite. It's the most beautiful uranium. Carnotite's beautiful stuff.
I mean, and that's okay. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So my dad is radiating things. I think
I think it would make nice jewelry for you. Just put a necklace on made out of it, and it would look great.
This could be good.
It's gorgeous stuff.
And so, I mean, like, let's talk about, because I want to be selfish, because my dad is an amazing artist. So you are working with paints that go back to the 60s, right? I mean, my dad has got paints that are illegal
Yeah.
now.
Probably so. Yeah, probably. Stuff you probably need a hazmat suit to dispose of.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
what do you want to know about that?
I don't know.
You want a hazmat?
Anything.
What? I just got a bunch of old paints, some old paint, old guy, old paint.
Like Van Gogh, though.
Well,
I mean, you've got paint that clearly causes issues, but you still keep them, which I think is really cool. So when I go over there and I'm like, it's like you pull the drawer out, it's like, oh my God, there's this paint from 1968. And you've got, I mean, I don't know how you do it, but it's cool.
Are they radioactive or toxic or?
Well, a lot of it's got lead in it. I mean, I guess that's not kosher anymore. I don't know. I don't pay any attention to that stuff. I don't really care, really, to be honest with you.
He worked in uranium, so obviously.
Yeah, I mean, so like, I'm toast anyway, so what do I give a damn?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like, if you spend all your time worrying about all of the things you're supposed to worry about, you're going to worry yourself to death. So, like I said, I sat down in a cafe with a 45 pointed at me with a claim jumper. So I'm, why worry?
Well, you know what I live by. As far as death goes, why worry about it? Because you'll be the last one to know.
That's exactly correct. That's exactly right.
Comforting.
Yeah. So why worry about it? Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and you're going to, be wherever you are wherever you are.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I've had an interesting life.
Dang, and if Vanessa is in the green room, sorry, Mario, I just saw that, but if Vanessa is there, like, please come back in, because I'm thinking it's Halloween weekend, and I would like to talk a little bit more, Dad, because you're on the spot. You're clearly on the record. So this is good. So Vanessa, come back on the show. But so my father, very artistic. Obviously, you can see the wonderful work that he's done. But there were points in his life where he had experiences that he could equate to,
To what?
I don't know. Tell us.
I don't know where you're going with
Well,
that.
so you've had experiences that were mystical or
Um, yeah, well, um, yeah, well, we, back in the early 70s, we spent a lot of time looking at out of body stuff and things like that. I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
so in the 70s you were looking at out of body stuff?
Yeah, we did a lot of that stuff. My friends and I, we were really into that stuff. Looking at altered states and all that. That was a big thing that a bunch of my friends and I were heavily into.
So what got you into that?
Curiosity.
But I mean, like, where did you hear about that and why did you think that was something fascinating?
I've just always been intensely spiritual. So I'm just
There was a movie about that at one time, Altered States,
Yeah.
around 1980 or so.
John Hurt?
Yeah, we were looking at that. And then when I lived up in Sandpoint, I was actually looking at buying one of those sensory deprivation chambers. I didn't do it, but I seriously thought about it. You know, what's his name? Bezos, Jeff Bezos, right? He was running Sharper Image out of a catalog, a slick catalog at the time. That's the way he started his whole thing, out of a slick paper catalog. And he was selling these sensory deprivation chambers that you could buy one. I almost bought one when I lived up in Sandpoint. God, that would have been slick. I was going to put myself in one of those and, see if I could,
Oh, balls.
slip out.
Sweet.
I was really looking to separate the mind from the body any way I could. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought, what the heck?
I mean, okay.
Yeah. So
all right. So you were.
So I've kind of looked into that, and it's fascinating stuff.
And so, like back in this early 70s,
And I studied hypnosis and fooled around with that and did some stuff with that.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, if I'm on the record here, which I apparently am.
Clearly.
Let's see, what do I want to say that I don't want to have to come back and haunt me at some point? Let's see. Back in my fraternity days, my college days, back before I went in the Army and got serious about life, I used to hypnotize my fraternity brothers. So, before tests, before our exams, so we could do better, perform better on our exams. That worked great. And I used to entertain people at our parties with hypnotized people
Baby Jesus.
at our parties.
Shiz.
Interesting.
That was kind of fun to do. Like you take people and make them into boards and hang it between chairs and and so forth and so on.
Was Uri Geller involved or any I mean, okay, go ahead.
Well, I did stuff like that. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, they do that now. They call it planking, don't they?
I don't know what they call it. I haven't done that in 50 years. It's been a long time. It was just kind of a college thing I was doing back when I was an idiot. I mean, I'm still an idiot, but I'm an old one now.
Okay, so you're hypnotizing people. You're doing like the.
Well, it's just kind of fooling around with stuff like that. It's kind of an interesting sort of thing to do. Back when I was 18, 19, like that.
And.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about that either. Are we talking to your phone? Or your phone's talking to me, or what?
I do not even know.
I
So
don't know either.
anyway, so yes, you're hypnotizing people.
Yeah, well, so that's just what I did back when I was 18 or 19,
Cool.
just in college, just for get your grades up and entertain people. That's it. Nothing serious. Just kind of like that. That's all. So I'm sure this is going to come back to haunt me when I'm standing there in the dark, at some point.
No, but
I haven't heard anything that you could be arrested for yet. I mean,
Well, that's
perfectly normal.
yeah, well, I don't know how normal, but I'm trying to watch what I'm saying here. So
I think most people do feel they had some kind of, existential or spiritual experiences to some extent that might involve different things. And then some of us share them in an effort to learn more and end up wishing we hadn't. And then, like, clearly some wisdom comes with the age of knowing to weigh words carefully about what I'm willing to say I believe or say I think. And like Erica knows, I don't even like to talk much about my experiences anymore. I'll talk to other people and listen to theirs and discuss the subject matter. But people will try to tell you, they'll try to interpret it for you and tell you what happened. And I empathize with being guarded about, I don't even want to go into it.
Yeah, well, you know what? Whatever you say can and will be used against you. Right, so
That's what they tell me.
Yeah,
Oh, Lordy.
yeah. So you just got to watch what you say. So yeah. So I just did what I did when I was 18, but I've always been kind of into the spiritual mode, and I've had some strange experiences and done some out of body kind of things. Had experiences that were kind of ethereal, shall we say?
And so, would you be willing to actually talk about what happened in the early 70s?
Which things? I gotta have some water here. Which things that happened in the early 70s?
Well, I mean, things that you were, you had a moment in time where you had an experience which was quite, I would say, religious, and then you were involved with.
There's there are some things that happened I'm not going to talk about.
Okay.
No, I can't talk about some of this. Some of the things that happen are just too far out there, and I'm not going to go on the record with some of this stuff. It's just too strange. So no, I'm going to defer to no.
I mean, if it's that radically different, they could make a movie out of it, and you could get rich.
Yeah, well,
Right.
I can't take it with me, and I'm too close to my dirt nap to want to. I mean, what if you can't take it with you and you can't spend it before you die? What the hell good is it? Right. So, yeah. So I've had some really interesting experiences. I've had a pretty interesting life. I've met some fascinating people. I've met president. I've met famous movie stars. I've spent time with some really interesting people, and I've met some really amazing people, and yeah, I got to watch what I say and try not to get myself in trouble.
No, but I mean, I don't think you're gonna get in trouble, but I mean, like you did though go on kind of like a spiritual journey. I mean, you went
I'm still on it.
through
Child.
your-
Still on it.
so I mean, through your life, you went, like, I think a lot of us in the UFO world or the paranormal world, it's like we're it's like we're getting exposed to information, and then we're taking this and we're running with it, and then we're getting involved with specific people or groups, and then that can I mean, any thoughts or comments?
Well, okay. This is why I talk about, this takes you back to the book. If you go back to my book here for a second, okay, I talk about two universes. All right. So my book is deceptively simple, but I talk about two different things. Okay. You got this universe, your personal universe. So these are arbitrary designations. All right. So your personal universe, I call it universe one. This is what's here is a different universe, and what's here is a different universe. So the physical universe is a universe of matter, energy, space, and time. This universe is a different universe, your mental universe. Okay, so here's a little something for people to think about. When you close your eyes, are you looking out or are you looking in? Think about that. Most people think when they close their eyes that they're looking in. I flip that on its head. In my book, I tell you, when you close your eyes, you're looking out. When you open your eyes, you're looking in. You're looking into the physical universe. This is a finite, this universe here that we're talking in is a finite universe. It's a closed universe. The physical universe is closed. This is an infinite universe, the one that's out here, out your head. So when you start messing around out here, it's infinite. This is how Einstein and Niels Bohr and all these guys can come up with, the metaverse and all these different dimensions and so forth. You couldn't do that in a finite universe. You can't conceive of all of these things in a closed, finite space, right? So I hint at that. I talk about that at the first part of my book. I talk about the creation process, how the creation process works. I talk about how that, and so the book talks about it's thought intensive, because the cheapest thing to work with is the mind. Everything that is done mentally is cheap, is inexpensive, right? It doesn't cost you a damn thing. And I'm a master at doing cheap things. Everything if you look at the video on my website, where the guy interviews me, and I show you my current painting technique. I use almost no paint, and yet I create some fairly decent paintings with virtually no paint. So how the hell do I do that? Well, you can see how I do it. I show you my technique there with virtually no paint, and it's almost like alchemy. In fact, it is kind of an alchemy sort of thing. I'm creating three-dimensional space on a two-dimensional surface. But what you're doing is I'm taking something from here, and I'm from out here, and I'm creating it in here so you can see it, right? So it starts out here and it comes in here into the physical universe so you can see it, but it starts out here. So I'm spanning universes. I'm going from no place, from nothing into something. So it's metaphysical. It's really a metaphysical sort of a thing. So that's getting pretty weighty. So I discovered stuff that goes beyond what's in the book, but I start suggesting some stuff in the book that goes beyond that. So there'll probably be some follow-up stuff to the book that goes beyond the book, but it goes way beyond. It's, the physical universe, way beyond.
And so what were your early influences back in the late 60s and 70s? I mean, you had some...
Yeah. Oh, God.
Well, I mean, you had some influences that...
Psychedelics.
Well, psychedelics, I mean, but...
Oh, man.
Were you familiar with John Lilly?
With who?
John Lilly.
No. Who's that?
He experimented with, as I recall, he experimented with dolphins one time. He tried to communicate with them, and
oh, okay, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, and I know at least one person who was a follower of his, and she tried to expand what he was doing with dolphins in his communication experiments, and she actually gave the dolphins some psychedelics, and it got her fired. She thought she could get somewhere by doing that, but they wouldn't allow her to continue.
Yeah, everybody was looking into this. I mean, back in the early 70s, the government was looking into all of that stuff. Our government, the Soviets, and all these other people were looking into, mind experiments, trying to, communicate telepathically and all that.
So how do you know that?
Because they were talking about it all over the place.
Who?
It was in the news. It was, it was just all over the place. Just all kinds of information about it.
Yeah. Check Fate magazine for those years. You'll see plenty of write-ups about it.
Yeah, everybody was looking at it. All my friends were talking about it. I had a bunch of friends that were, all my pals that I was hanging out with. We were all looking into that. We were looking at, everybody's, trying to figure out how to, do telepathic stuff. We were all trying to get in and all that sort of, mental stuff. I mean, everybody was into that big time.
And so what led you guys into that? That was like the early 70s then?
Oh yeah, it was big time. That's when Scientology was really big. A bunch of us got into that, and we're looking into that, and that was really going down that rabbit hole and looking into that. And it was fast. The whole thing was fascinating. It was just, science fiction was really big, so everybody is really into all that. And the people I was hanging out with were really, we were looking at, telepathy and telekinesis and all that. Everybody was just really intensely into that. My pals were scientists. A bunch of my pals were geologists and geophysicists and nuclear engineers. I'm still friends with some of these guys.
And so where are they located? I mean,
all over the country.
And so they were like getting into telepathy and
yeah, we were all looking,
remote viewing and
all of us were into that. I mean, big time. We were just totally focused on that, looking at that.
And so what, like in the early 70s, like what spurred you on to look into that?
Just a total fascination with the subject. It's like the idea of making things happen with your mind. I mean, it seems like we should be able to do stuff with your mind. I mean, it's like, I don't know, it just seemed like, and it turns out it's true.
But I mean, what was the inception point? Like, what were you looking at? Where were you like, okay, so this is great. And then you look at Ron Hubbard and then you look at his work and then you're thinking, okay, we can do remote viewing or we can do A, B, C, and D. And so we're going to get into this.
Okay. Well, the thing about Hubbard, that was interesting. I mean, ultimately I decided that he was, he was off, but the thing that was interesting about him is that, he had a really vivid imagination, and he looked into so many things so deeply that if you went down the rabbit hole with him, to extricate yourself from that, you had to think your way back out of the rabbit hole, which was fascinating. So it was a fun trip with a bunch of us that went down the rabbit hole with him, and we had to think ourselves back out of that rabbit hole. So you had to go back and say, you'd pick up every piece that you went in and you looked at this and you said, okay, well, I'm looking at this. You had to really think your way into it. And then in order to extricate yourself from that, you had to say, okay, now do I think this is BS or not? And so you picked this piece up that you looked at and thought, well, this is what he said. And you said, well, okay, now what does my own experience tell me? Yes or no? You say, well, okay, bullshit. That's, this isn't right. But you had to think your way back out of it. But he just by virtue of the fact that he had so many places to take you in the first place, I mean, so many rabbit holes to go down, you never would have looked down all these different rabbit holes had he not shown you all these rabbit holes to look in the first place. So it was it was like a fascinating, it's like he opened up a whole bunch of caves and you got to go down and spelunk down all these different caves. So now you had to pull yourself back out of all of these caves and think your way back out of all these caves and draw your own conclusions and say, okay, no, that's a dry hole. That's a dry hole. That's a dry hole. And then you come back out and say, okay, well, this is all basically bullshit, and think your way out of all these rabbit holes and come back out and make your own decisions. So, I mean, Hubbard has some interesting ideas. He was really quite a brilliant guy.
Right.
But, in the end, I completely dismissed, his conclusions and what he was doing. But I admired his vision and I admired his imagination, right? And I don't, so that would, my conclusion was my conclusion was I came up with all my own stuff and totally dismiss all of what he did. But it was a great mental swashbuckle. It was like a swashbuckling adventure. It was like an Errol Flynn adventure down your own mind, out your own mind. And everything I've come up with is my own stuff, right? It had nothing whatsoever to do with Scientology. It's just, he just got me thinking about all this different stuff that I never would have thought about before had I not gone down all those rabbit holes with him. And I just came up with all my own stuff. I said, okay, I dismiss all of this crap. And now what do I know? And so I thought my way out of all this stuff and came up with my own stuff based on my own experience and what I learned in the Army, studying combat and basically how to, all the stuff you learn in combat training. And then all the stuff I learned with doing art and saying, okay, well, so if I'm painting a picture, don't even think about that thought. So I'd ask myself, if I'm painting a picture, does it apply to, can I make this apply to this? And will it also apply to taking a machine gun nest? So I was looking for the equivalent of E equals MC squared, the creative equivalent to E equals MC squared. So I mean, it's like what's his name? Like Einstein was looking for, the unifying theory of everything, right, in physics. So I was looking for the unifying theory of creativity. So, what is the theory of everything from a creative standpoint, which is kind of a, big task. So I thought, well, okay, so it's got to apply to everything aside from the fact that I'm the one that's doing it. So will it apply to writing a poem? Will it apply to taking a machine gun nest? Will it apply to doing a painting? Will it apply to cooking a dinner? Will it apply to this? Will it apply to that? It has to apply to everything. So those were the tests. So I had to think my way through all of those things and make sure that whatever I was doing would apply to everything. And it was coming out of my head. So would it apply to this? Would it apply to that? So I had to think my way through everything and come up with a set of principles and I figured it out. I figured it out back in 1983, 84. And then I built the system that I built. And then I had to make it really, 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 really simple. So, and then make it a reference work so I could refer to it and make it relevant so it would span time. So I could go back to it 40 years later and it would still be relevant and still work in 40 years in the future.
Right.
And I did, and it does.
And that's amazing. And I want to go back because to me, this is like so amazing with some of the things I've gone through with the UFO world, but to like your early 70s, late 60s, Scientology, like you have, I think, one of the first e-meters, I think.
Yeah. I think I still might even have one of those. Or I did.
Well, that would be good. I'd love to see that. But I mean, what drew you into that? Because I think that's really important. And it's interesting to me to see that there are a lot of people not a lot, but a few people in the UFO world that are drawn to Scientology.
Well, I don't know what they're doing in there now, but I mean, it's all changed. But back then it was just a lot of people that were, it's amazing how many scientists were involved in it. There are a lot of people in the early days were, back when Hubbard was still alive, were scientists. Hubbard had some just really interesting ideas, and I don't know. It was fascinating. It was all of us were science fiction readers, so we were all just fascinated with science fiction, right? So I don't know. We were all interested in the idea of using our minds. Okay, so the highest level was we are going for total cause over matter, energy, space, and time, and thought, objective and subjective. That was the goal. That was the stated goal. Total cause over matter, energy, space, and time, and thought, objective and subjective. So we were trying to learn how to operate outside of our bodies. That's what we were all trying to do. We were all working towards that objective. And according to what Hubbard was, telling us, we working through the various levels, we would get to that, right? And so you do these various levels and you supposedly achieve various aspects of that. And so various things would happen as you go through these various levels, and various things would happen. And so it was interesting. And so you go do these various things, and various things would happen. And it was interesting. So we'd all keep blowing smoke up each other's keisters, and it was a fascinating experience. And since all these people that I was with were really, really smart people, like I said, there were a bunch of scientists that I was with. So we were all going back and forth. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? I don't know. This is bullshit. This is not bullshit. Interesting. This is interesting. That's not interesting. So we go back and forth and talk about it, and eventually we all ended up dropping out of it. But it was a fascinating, interesting time. It was, like I said, the government was looking at it. Russia and America, the government had a whole bunch of experiments. They were trying to figure out how to do it because it would have made fantastic weapons if we could, use our in fact, the government had all kinds of experiments trying to figure out how to weaponize it. So, we could, imagine what kind of weapon that would be if you could remotely control our enemy with your mind.
And so that was the early 70s when you guys were all into that and thinking that remote viewing was.
Yeah. So that was the big time thing. Everybody was really working on that. So everybody was looking at that back in the early 70s. So by the end of the 70s, we were all kind of fading away from that. It's like, okay, that ain't getting it. So,
But I mean, like who, like in the early 70s, because obviously you were like, this is groundbreaking back in the early 70s. So
Yeah.
like who was looking at that and like, I mean,
Timothy Leary and all these big names were all looking at this and looking at that, and everybody was talking about it. It was in all the magazines, and there's all kinds of studies about it. And it was fascinating stuff, and everybody, everybody was experimenting with this and experimenting with that. It was fascinating stuff. So,
but I mean, how, like when you were involved in all of that, like what was your role in all of that? Because you were behind the scenes in a lot of, you were behind the scenes in a lot of this stuff. So like, what was happening and where were you specifically, like in the early 70s when you were dealing with this?
I mean, where was I? Well, where I was, see, I created I had two businesses. One was North American Resources Corporation. So I had that big mining operation going. So I was out there drilling for uranium and prospecting and dealing with claim jumpers and doing all that fun stuff. But I also had a graphic arts and typesetting company. So I was doing that too. And then I was painting pictures. So I was kind of a busy boy. And then I was doing all the spiritual stuff at the same time. So I was walking and chewing gum and, all of that at the same time. So I was just doing all that at the same time.
But you were involved with the people that were in with the remote viewing.
Well, yeah, and my partner and I, we were talking about this stuff all the time. We were sitting here in the trailer talking about this stuff, and he was experimenting with stuff, and we'd talk about it, and we'd think about it, and we, what about this? What about that? It was just kind of like that, just conversations, endless conversations about it. We'd be driving up and down the desert talking about it, thinking about it, wondering about it.
But I mean, where were the people like that were involved with Scientology? Because I mean, obviously in the early 70s, there were people like Hal Puthoff and I mean, people that are high up in Scientology that are talking about remote viewing and trying to get.
You'd have to go off to courses. What they do is you go off to a course. You go to Florida for a course, or you go to for training or for this or that. You go there. You go to LA or for some course or for some whatever, and then you have some, get some what they call auditing and have some, whatever done to you and you do something.
But would it have been fair to call you a hippie back then?
Not really. I wasn't. I didn't have long hair, and I took showers, and I didn't douse myself in patchouli. So no. So no, I wasn't a hippie. I was. No, I was an ex-military, so I was not a hippie. No, I was. No, I was. No, I wasn't really a hippie. I was. I was not a hippie. I was something in between. Not a hippie though.
But so, how did you? Because you were an artist, you were at Dugway.
I never quite. I don't fit into any category. I've never actually fit in any kind of slot or anything. I'm just sort of a nonconformist. I'm not. And I'm not. I don't fit in. I don't label easily. I'm not any. I don't fit in any kind of label.
Okay, so you were a divergent.
Yeah, I guess if you want to label me, if you label me without a label, I'm a unlabeled. I mean, you can't label me because I don't fit in any label. I'd be a conservative.
Of terror. But okay, but let's go back to the fact that so early 70s, you were involved with a group that was, I mean, you guys were the kind of the forefront of Scientology. You guys.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
I mean, but you were. I mean, you were there.
I was involved in it.
Okay, but and you were there when they were testing e-meters, right?
Well, they weren't. Well, there are a bunch of people that went through before me. I was involved in it. And I had, yeah. I mean, I went quite a ways into it. I went far enough into it so I could come out of it. You know, the way out's the way through. So the only way you can really find out about something is to go all the way into it and find out about it. So when I do something, I go into it to find out about it.
And so what do you think now about that?
I'm glad I did it. I went in it. I fully immersed myself in it. I immersed myself in it enough to understand what it was I was seeing, enough to say, okay, well, that was a very interesting experience. And I didn't come out and go, oh my God, I wish I hadn't done that. No, I don't have that reaction at all. I met a lot of really interesting people. Some of them are still my friends. I'm very glad I did it. I spent a lot of money, but I don't have any regrets for having done it. It was very enriching in the sense that I learned a whole lot about myself. And the whole thing was fascinating because I explored areas that I never would have explored. My net conclusion was that the whole thing was a great, gigantic science, sci-fi swashbuckle. And my conclusion, the whole thing is bullshit. But it was fun. It was a huge amount of fun. It was like a giant. Oh God. An E. Doc Smith novel. It was like being in a great science fiction novel, like getting to live into a science fiction novel. It was just hugely fun. I mean, and I was in this science fiction novel, and it was great fun. And the people I met it was fun, and I learned a lot. And to extricate myself from all of that, because I went so far into it, that digging myself out of it made it possible. It expanded the depth of my own thinking, and because I went so far into it, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to see, because I'm so intensely curious. It made it possible for me to. Oh God! It's sort of like what happens in the military. Strange things happen in the military. They push you so far, especially when you go to OCS. When you're an officer, very few people make it through. The training. They push you so far that you find stuff out about yourself that you don't think you can do certain things. Then they push you and they push you and they push you. And if you make it through that, you discover stuff about yourself that you didn't think that you could possibly do. And then you keep discovering new levels and new levels that, God, I can do that. God, I didn't know I could do that. And you just keep discovering new levels and new levels and new levels. And when you think it can't get any worse, and then it does, and you find that you're still standing, and you just keep finding new levels of yourself. And so Scientology kind of did that for me intellectually. I kept finding new levels as I was digging myself out of all of that. I kept finding new levels of intellectual levels of an understanding of myself as I was digging myself out of that. And so I had to dig myself out and understand. I found understanding and an intellectual depth that I didn't know that I had. So it enabled me to. I became a whole hell of a lot smarter coming because I had to dig myself out of that. So I was grateful for the experience, even though I ended up dismissing everything that I learned from Scientology. I mean, there were a few good things in there, but the whole experience, the net result was it was a great experience. Even though I dismissed basically all of the stuff I learned there, I dismissed it all. But I wouldn't trade a moment of it because I met some great people, and some of whom are still my friends. And because I had to think myself out of it and go back and it just made me stronger. Like the military makes you stronger. I mean, you hate the stuff that you're doing while you're in it, but you're grateful for having done it because it makes you so much stronger for having done it. Does that make any sense? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that does make sense, but I'm just wondering when you've got Scientology or specific groups that are basically I mean, they're cult. It's a cult. And so how
Well,
do
that's just a
you,
label.
well, I mean,
I
but,
mean, so you can say any religious group on the planet.
Right.
You can label it that way too.
but I mean, at what point in time does that come into your mindset? I mean, I think Scientology is one of the biggest cults on the planet. I mean, and I'm not saying that
It is what
other
it is.
religions aren't,
It is what it is.
but
It's a group of people that think a certain way, and they suck. Okay, whatever you want to think. I don't give a rat's patootie what you think. I mean, it's fine. I mean, right now, I mean, I don't have an opinion one way or another. I mean, it's like, think what you want, believe what you want, whatever. It's like, have at it, right? I'm not thinking that way. I don't think the way they think. They got their own belief system. That's not my belief system. I don't think that way. I don't agree with any of what they're thinking and what they're doing or how they look at things. If you think about it, what's actually happening is, okay, say you've got, I think in India they have
the caste system.
No, not that. They have a description of a bunch of blind men standing around an elephant, and they're trying to describe an elephant. They're touching the elephant in various places, and they say, so they're all describing something different, right? Well, so I like to use a horse. I say, okay, so you're all standing around, you're looking at a horse, and so if you're standing there, you're looking at the horse from one end, and you say, well, okay, I see this, and you're standing at another place, and you're looking at it, and I see it. You're all looking at the same animal, but you're looking at it from a different direction, and everybody sees something different. Well, okay, so everybody that's, say, in Scientology, or if you're a Mormon, if you're a Catholic, everybody sees something from wherever they're standing. They're looking at the same animal, but they're all looking at it from a different direction. So, if you're trying to enforce your viewpoint on somebody else, then, that's not I don't subscribe to that, trying to force somebody to look at it from your direction. So fine, you look at it from your direction. That's your viewpoint. You're standing there looking at the horse from where you're standing. That's your viewpoint. Fine, have at it. Look at it from your viewpoint. That's great. Where I look at it, I can move my viewpoint anywhere. I move my viewpoint in and out of this dimension. I can move my viewpoint, not just around the horse. I can move it in and out of this dimension. I can move it, I can move it from dimension to dimension to dimension. I'm way past that. I don't think out of the box. I think out of the dimension. I'm so far beyond all of that it's just unbelievable. And it's no small degree thanks to the fact I had to think my way out of Scientology because of all those little wrinkles and places that, Hubbard, went so far with all this wild thinking, science fiction thinking, that in order to extricate myself from all of that, I had to think my way out of it by actually getting out of all of the dogma and making my own decisions all the way back out. So I had to come up with my own way of looking at everything. And I had to go, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. What do I actually think? What am I actually seeing? What am I seeing? As I was asking myself, okay, will it apply to taking a machine gun nest because that's what I was trained, right? Or does it apply to a painting? If I'm putting paint on a canvas, does it apply to this? Does it apply to doing a dinner party? Does it apply to this? Does it apply to that? I mean, real practical stuff, right? So I had to think my way back out of it. So it made me stronger intellectually. And then it made me so I could jump out of the dimension that I'm in. I can leave the physical universe. I can leave this dimension. So, I mean, it just made me stronger and stronger.
So you think Scientology is a good thing?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, I mean, it depends on how you approach it. I mean, if you want to go play around with it, I mean, it's interesting for sure. But I mean, it's like, you don't need it. I mean, it's like, I'm not bad mouthing it. I'm not for it. I'm not against it. It's just a thing. It's just, it's just a bunch of people doing a bunch of stuff. You want to spend a bunch of money on it, go ahead, knock yourself out. But it's, it's a big money-making racket. I mean, at least when Hubbard was doing what he was doing, I think, Hubbard was a fascinating guy, the guy that's taken it over. I'm not so sure about that guy, but, and I'm not going to badmouth any of those guys because it could be sort of dangerous, but,
Well,
but I'm not going there. But it's just a body of beliefs. It's a viewpoint, and they've got a viewpoint, and they're looking at the horse from their dimension, from their way they're looking at it. From my standpoint, I got out of it what I got out of it, and I got out of it, right?
Well, praise baby Jesus.
Yeah. So now I'm looking at all kinds of stuff. I'm even going back for the first time in my life. I've actually opened the Bible, amazingly enough.
Oy.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of interesting.
Oy.
I've never actually looked at the Bible, ever.
Mama, maybe, baby.
Yeah. Well, so that's sort of an interesting thing.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Well, so actually, this friend of mine who's a surgeon bought me a Bible and put my name engraved on it.
Sweet.
And I thought, he bushwhacked me with this thing. And I thought, oh boy. And so I thought, well, because I asked him some questions about it. I said, well, what about this? What about that?
Right.
And so he gave me this big thing here. And I said, okay. So we're having these intellectual discussions now about this thing. And he's the first guy that's ever willing to have a discussion with me about that, some of the stuff in there where I could ask him challenging questions and he didn't get all huffy and weird about it.
Well, I mean, that's good. That's good. I've got a question to ask. So anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. This has been a very interesting evening. But so do you have any theories on UFOs?
Yeah, I do actually. I expect they're probably real. I mean, it'd be kind of stupid and vain to think that they're not real. I would think, wouldn't you?
I think that what we know about our own reality and universe is we know nothing virtually. But
yeah, I agree with that.
do I think that ET is what we've been told it is? No, I don't.
I agree with that.
So
I've seen stuff. I think I've seen stuff. When I was out in the desert, I think I saw some stuff, but I mean, who knows? I mean, you don't know what you've actually seen sometimes. You see stuff out in the desert some strange stuff out there sometimes, especially when you're out there, for months on end. And, so yeah, I've seen some stuff out there.
do you think uranium had anything to
Yeah, I used to have hair and now it's all gone and now I glow in the dark. So yeah, I think.
God, is that why I'm losing my hair? Is that why I've got like a beard?
Case closed.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
do you glow in the dark? I mean, can you?
I don't know.
Do you need a nightlight now?
I'll ask my boyfriend. Just kidding.
Yeah, well, do you need? I don't need a nightlight anymore. So.
Really?
Yeah, really.
It's kind of creepy.
Yeah. So.
But do you think that your UFO experiences had anything to do with uranium?
No, I don't think that has anything to do with that.
Okay.
So no, I think it'd be pretty vain to think that that humans are the only living entities in this dimension. I think that'd be vain and stupid. I mean, we're not the only living creatures out there in the cosmos. That's kind of stupid to think. That's my take on the whole thing.
Thank God. It's kind of disturbing if we were.
Well, I mean, give me a break.
Well,
right?
Pretty much. Yeah. No, I mean.
And, getting into the this thing I was telling you about with my book, using the dimensions, the universe 1, which is your personal universe, and universe 2, which is the physical universe. I discovered another verse, which I call the God verse, the zero verse. I call it the zero verse.
Yeah.
I discovered that when my wife passed, and it's an amazing place where it's an amazing place. I actually, it's a place where I actually connected to, oh God, I don't know if I want to go in public and talk about this.
No, I wouldn't.
It's pretty intense, but it's, there's much more. There is much more. So I'm quite convinced that there's much more beyond this dimension, way more. And I had a very interesting conversation with my nephrologist, kidney doctor, who is also she's trained. She's a medical doctor, an American. She's from India, but she's also, licensed in the United States. And here's something for your guy,
Oh, my Lord.
for your people here. You'll like this. I asked her, think about this. Here's a concept for you to chew on. So you think about a nucleus. Okay, so you got electrons whizzing around a nucleus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got electrons and protons and so forth going around the nucleus. Right. Okay, so I asked her, so we're having this pretty intense conversation. I said, so you got all these electrons and all these particles whizzing around a nucleus. I said, so you got space. There's space between all of these particles. So I asked her, so what's in the space? Now she's from India, right? So she's got classical Indian training.
Right.
And she looks at me, she says, consciousness. Think about that.
Where were you?
I was here.
At your doctor? Stop.
No, I met with her.
Okay.
After at a Barnes and Noble. We were just sitting there having a conversation. And I asked her about that. And she just said, consciousness. And I went,
All's afire.
Yeah, think about that. Consciousness. Then that poses the question, whose consciousness? What consciousness? What consciousness would be in that space between those particles?
Whose do you think?
Well, think about that.
Not Ron Hubbard.
No. The consciousness that might hold everything together across.
Who would that be? God?
Across all dimensions.
Who do you think that would be, though?
Well, or what that might be. Think about it. Just contemplate that. Just wrap your head around that. Across all dimensions. Think about that.
Do you think it'd be a woman, though?
I don't think they're possible. Does it matter?
Yes, it does.
Well, it might matter. It might matter to you. Maybe the entity might identify as a woman.
Entity.
Erica, you have to expand your frontiers.
What? I'm trying to expand my frontiers. Are you kidding?
Yes, well, it might be that that swimmer from wherever from Pennsylvania. Could be
It's
her.
true. It's true. And so, Amy, yeah, thank you. The show is sponsored by Fancy Feast. That is absolutely right. And so I love you guys. So thank you for going.
For putting up
going
with
there.
all this. See, it's her fault. She dragged me in.
Thank you for spending time with us this evening. I've enjoyed hearing about your life. Thank you for sharing.
No, yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sorry for putting up with me.
Whatever. Now you know.
Yeah, now you know why she's so weird.
No. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, well,
You can't blame genetics. No. Mm-mm. No.
Well, sorry. It's the radiation. It's all
Oh my
the
God! Seriously?
It's all the uranium.
I know. I can't believe you had a fire on your fireplace when you had these
Gigantic rocks.
I know. Oh my
radioactive
God.
rocks. Well,
You guys, I love you. I mean, I love you. But just know that if I die tomorrow or glow, you'll understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Blame it on him. Okay. So anyway, on that note, thank you, Riff Raff, and thank you, Barry, and thank you, Mario, and I love you guys, Leah, Shadowy Spectrums, all of you guys, Scott. Anyway, thanks for humoring us. We had a great time on Halloween, and Susan was here, and I just love her. Bob Marley, everybody. I will be here. Actually, next week I will be at a family function, so I will not be here, but I will do a show a week from that Friday. So anyway, thank you so much. Go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org to learn about all of the great work that we're doing. Jack Brewer, you guys rock. You rock. Barry Greenwood, you rock. Thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful organization. And I hope you guys have a happy Halloween. So
Good to see you, Barry.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Have a good holiday.
yeah, you guys, good night. Thanks, guys. Hopefully I can actually end the show, but you know how this goes. So